Hello guys, Tika's Hands here. Welcome to the practical half of the patterning class. If you are a person that likes following written instructions more than spoken instructions, feel free to jump on Canvas and you can find the instructions that I'm about to narrate to you also written down. If you are not a written instruction person, go ahead and just follow along with me here and we should be able to get you through this with very little sweat. So, let's go over things you're going to need to do this. First, you're going to want a big piece of paper. So I'm working on this sort of brown craft butcher paper. The smallest piece of paper that will probably work nicely for this is around 12 by 12 inches. So you want to be bigger than a normal piece of notebook paper. We've discovered that this pattern just barely doesn't fit on notebook paper. If you need to tape two pieces of notebook paper together, feel free to do that. Next thing you're going to need is a hard ruler of some sort. So I have both my fancy square here and my normal plastic ruler. If you try to do this with a wibbly, flexible tape measure, you are going to dislike the experience intensely. So please do use a hard ruler of some sort. I think the longest line you will have to draw is about 10 inches. So if you only have a shorty one, that's fine too. You'll also want something to write with. I strongly suggest that you do this in pencil. I do most of my pattern work in pencil. I'm going to do this one in pen so you guys can see it. But pencil is always preferable because then when you screw up, you can back out. For anyone who's interested, I basically adapted this body block from this book, The Costume Technician's Handbook. If you are at all interested in getting into costuming, highly recommend you pick this one up. This is the book that everyone starts from, so you will always come back to this one for something eventually. With that, let me pull up the actual instructions on my computer so I can make sure I don't lead you astray, and let's get started. Alright, so the first thing we are going to do is draw a square. And we are working with sort of a hypothetical person who has a chest size of 19 inches, a waist of 6.5 inches, and we know that their dart when we get there is going to be 1/4 inch. You're not going to need to know this. I will actually call out the measurements as we need them. But in case I say at one point, oh, we're going to do 1/4 of the front chest, and it's a measurement that you're like, wait, how did she get that? That's where I got it from. All of that will be written down on the instructions in Canvas. So if you are one of those uber inquisitive people who wants to see sort of how we got there, go ahead and check that out. Or get in touch with me. I can also always tell you what we've just done. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is draw a square. And I think I've got us nicely lined up here. I'll try to put you a little more in the center. That should be good. So our vertical square side is going to be 8.5 inches. Our horizontal square side is going to be 9.75 or 9 3/4 inches. So let's start there. So I'm going to draw my 8.5 inch side. I'm going to try to make sure that it connects. I'm going to draw my 9 3/4 inch side. Then I'm going to flip my ruler over, line it all up again, and do the same thing. So I'm going to go 9 3/4 over here, 8.5 over here. Make sure that that's all lined up in a way that will let me draw it nicely. And I'm going to finish my square. Then I'm going to label the corners of my square. So I'm going to say A is here. So A, we'll make him big and bold so you can see it. B, C, and D. Now that we've got our square and it's labeled, we're going to divide it in half. So we're going to divide A and C and B and D, which is going to be 4.87 inches. 4.87 and 4.87, and then I'm going to draw a vertical line to connect those, and this will be line EF. You'll start seeing how this scheme works pretty quickly here with the letters. So here's EF. From A to C, so A to C, measure down 1/4 of the total distance and draw a line parallel to AC. So 1/4 of this total distance here is going to be 2.4 inches. So we're going to measure down 2.4 inches and draw a line across. And you can see I'm using sort of this thick blue line to line up with my EF line to make sure that all of this comes out nice and square. And that is going to be GH. And then we're going to do that one more time, coming down 2.4 inches from GH. And that will be IJ when we get there. So 2.4, line across, and this is going to be IJ. All right, so we've got that all marked out, and now we can start our actual front of this pattern. In patterning, when you're drafting like this, typically you do your front on the left side and your back on the right side. I honestly don't know why that is. It's just sort of tradition. Most people will do front and back. So let's go ahead and start with our front. So the first thing we're going to do is come 1.5 inches to the left of C and 1/4 of an inch up, and we're going to mark K. So we're going to come 1.5 inches over and 1/4 inch up. So 1/4 inch up, and right there is K. And I'll even make it a plus sign so we can see what's going on. Make K a little bolder. There we go. And then from K, we're going to come 1.5, so 1.5 inches down. And again, I'm trying to make sure everything is square, so I'm looking at sort of where my lines are and where they're going. I'm going to come 1.5 inches down. And I'm going to mark L. And then from C, I'm going to come 1.25 inches down. So 1.25 inches down. And that's going to be M. And then we're going to connect K and L and M with straight lines. And this is going to become our collar. Because the next thing we're going to do, now that we have our nice square and we know where our collar is going, is we're going to draw, if you think of a t-shirt collar, think of a nice gentle curve from between K and M. I am freehanding this because I've done this long enough that I can sort of see where it's going. I highly suggest that you guys use the bottom of a water bottle or a can or a fancy circular ruler. If you've got it, you can use a compass. I would say you guys probably want to not freehand that. But now we've got that in. That is the collar on the front of our body block. That's sort of, you think of the collar on a t-shirt. All right, next thing we're going to do is come down 0.8 inches under the AC line. So here's AC, and I'm getting set to come down 0.8 inches, which will be just about there. Again, I'm looking at, making everything line up nicely. And I'm going to draw that line from EF over to basically meet the collar that we just drew. So there's that line. And that line doesn't get any numbers or letters because it's helping us out with the next thing. So this is the part where some people completely get lost. So I'm going to do it a couple times. And remember, this is a video. You can also back up and see me do it a couple more times. So this is the neck to shoulder measurement. And we know that our neck to shoulder measurement is 2.75. So we're going to find 2.75 on the ruler. We're going to put that on K. So I've just put the 2.75 mark on my K dot. Then I'm going to take this corner of the ruler and swivel it down until it meets this line. That's where I'm going to put my dot. So one more time. 2 3/4, right there, 2 3/4 inches. I'm going to put that point on K, and then I'm going to swivel that down to touch that line that we just drew there. I'm going to make a dot there, and I believe that is N. Yes, that is point N. And then we're going to connect N and K with a straight line. And you have the front shoulder of your garment. So there's N to K. All right, next thing we're going to do is start putting the armpit in here. So we're going to mark O on the I to J line at the point where it crosses E to F. So I to J line where it crosses E to F. So O is going to go right here. Simple as that. So there's O. To the left of H, so here's H, measure out half your front width measurement, which will be 3.75 inches, and mark P. So 3.75, going to be right here, and that will be P. Connect N to P with a straight line. So N and P with a straight line. And then we're going to connect P to O with a curved line. Again, if you don't feel comfortable freehanding this in, find something to make this curve happen. And this isn't going to be sort of a perfect curve. This is sort of a bottom-heavy curve. This is the front armpit on this garment. That's not too bad. You can see now why I generally draft in pencil. But that's not too bad. So there's the front armpit of the front of our garment. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is come down here and adjust the side seam and play with the dart. So side seams and darts, right now, if you were to make this into a t-shirt, this would be a very boxy t-shirt. It would just sort of hang on the body that it's intended for. So to shape around the chest and sort of into the waist, we start pulling the sides of the pattern in here. So we're going to pull this side in, and then we're going to put a dart in here to help with the shape. So that just, pinches a little more of the fabric out right here. So for our side seam, to the left of D, so D, and we're working this way, measure out 1/4 of the total waist measurement. And this is the total waist measurement of the person, not just of what you see here. So the 1/4 of the total waist measurement on our person is going to be 4 inches. And then, that's going to be our 4 inches. We're going to add the width of the waist dart. We're going to come back in and put in a second. And that width of the waist dart is going to be a 1/4 inch over. So now I'm looking at 4 inches plus that 1/4 inch for the waist dart. So I'm going to come over 4.25 and put a mark right there, and that is going to be Q. And then Q and O will match, or will connect with a straight line. So you can see our side seam starting to come in there. And then we're going to find the halfway point between Q and D, which is going to be just over 2 inches. It's going to be about 2 1/8. So right there. And these aren't going to get, as we set this dart up, these don't get fancy letters. So you just got to hang in there with me here. So this is halfway between Q and D, and we're going to draw a line that comes all the way up to O and J. So there's our OJ line. And then, since we know our dart wants to be 1/4 inch total, that means 1/8 inch gets marked on either side of this line. So 1/8 inch here, and 1/8 inch here. And then we're going to connect those two marks up to the top of our dart. And there is our finished front half. Now that you've gotten through this, getting through the back is going to be a piece of cake, because this is basically just this again, but with slightly different measurements. So I'm going to label this front, and let's swap over and work on our back. All right, so our back neck, we're going to start out going 1.25 inches to the right of A and 1/4 inch up. So 1 1/4 over and 1/4 up. Gonna be right there, and that is going to be labeled AA. The next thing we're going to do is draw in a curve between A and AA to get our back neck. If you're working on 8.5 by 11 paper, this is the part that doesn't fit nicely. All right. To the back shoulder, to the right of G, so we're G working right, measure out 1/2 of the total back width. Again, that's the total back width of the whole garment or of the person. not just the back width you see here. So you're going to measure out half the total back width, which will be 4 inches. And I'm going to mark BB. So this is BB. 1.5 inches up from BB, mark CC. So I'm coming 1.5 inches up from BB, and this will be CC. All right, so now we get into sort of that shenaniganry we did over here. So we're going to put our ruler on AA and CC, so there's a straight line between them, and we're going to make this line the length of the neck to shoulder measurement. So I know this neck to shoulder measurement is 2.75, and then on the back of our garment, we generally give a little bit of ease in the shoulder that helps people move a little bit more nicely. So it's going to be 2.75 plus that ease, which will be 1/4 inch. So this is going to be 3 inches total, AA and CC. And amazingly, this, where CC is, lines up almost perfectly. If it doesn't, you can put another dot in here that is DD. But for now, we've got AA to CC. And the next thing we're going to do is connect CC to BB, sort of like we did N and P over here, with a straight line. And then we're going to connect BB to O with a curve. You can see now, again, it's why I generally work in pencil, because I don't always get it right the first time. But now we've got front, we've got back. So let's go ahead in here and do our seam and our dart on our back. So to the right of B, to find our seam, to the right of B, measure out 1/4 the total waist measurement. Again, total waist measurement of the garment or the person. That will be 4 inches. And then we add the width of the waist dart, which will be 1/4 inch. So we're going to do 4 1/4 inches over here. We're out there, and that is going to be DD. And then we're going to connect O and DD with a straight line, just like we did O and Q. All right, and then to put our dart in, we're going to find halfway between B and DD, which is, again, this is 4.25. So this is going to be 2.8. 2 and an eighth, not 2.8. 2 and an eighth. And then before we draw this line, well, I guess we can draw this line in vertically, so let's go ahead and draw this line in vertically. But then before we draw the dart in, we want to drop the top of the dart 1/2 inch from the IJ line. We don't want this one in the back going up nearly as high. So 1/2 inch down from IJ on our dart line is going to be the top of our dart. And then on the B to D line, just like we did over here, we're going to mark out half of our dart on either side of this line. And then we're going to connect those, instead of coming all the way up, we're going to connect those to that top dart mark we just made. And there you have it. So you have a front, you have a back, you have a neck hole here. This will get sewn together, and that becomes the seam at the top of your shoulder. This is your armhole, so down here is your armpit. Here's the side seam, and then these help shape the garment. So you should hopefully have something that looks an awful lot like this. Make sure your name is on either the piece of paper if you don't cut it out, or if you choose to cut it out, make sure that your name is on both pieces so we know who they belong to. And I believe that instructions for turning this in will also be on canvas, and we will check them out when they get down to the costume shop. Again, if you have any questions on any of this, feel free to get in touch with me. I am Tika, TEKA.England@UKY.edu. I am also in the shop Monday, Tuesday, and Thursdays from about 9 a.m. to about 4 p.m. I may be in and out if I'm doing dye work, but you're always welcome to come down, stick your head in with your mask on, of course, and see if I can answer any questions for you. And if you're interested in doing sort of another more advanced version of this, feel free to get in touch with me, and I will throw the female version at you, because she has more exciting darts in different places. Until then, keep sewing, and have a great week, guys. Bye!